How's my sound? How's my sound? 1 2 1 2 5 4 5 4 5 4. Let me know if you could hear me. Let me know if you could see me. Status Coup in the house. Had my microphone on mute. Can't hear. You can hear now. 1 2 1 2 1 2 5 4 5 4 5 4. Inauguration day here in the United Corporations of America. I'm not sure if you saw this just rebirth of America this afternoon. CNN and MSNBC are picking their slobber off the ground. Volume low, you say? Let me pick up the volume for you. CNN and MSNBC are picking up their slobber off the ground. It has been so absurd. So absurd. Watching cable news coverage. You don't know whether to cry or laugh, to tell you the truth. It's been that embarrassing. But we did have the inauguration earlier. Have a lot of thoughts on that, of course. And we will see, what happens quickly. Because Biden has signed 17 executive orders. Mostly executive orders just doing away with the toxic things Trump did. So that's why I titled this Back to the Neoliberal Future. Because really, what he did was essentially just go back to Obama. That was it. Hey, let me know in the super chat if you got the text message. Because I just sent out the text, but I don't know if people got it. So let me know if you got the text message. Please smash that like button. More people that press the like button, the more people that will see this live stream. We're cooking. We're over 106,000 subscribers, almost at 107,000. So we are really, really growing quickly. It's been a great couple weeks for us. And also, unfortunately, the major Flint story we just broke, we didn't have a choice, had to break it on the day that Trump was being impeached for a second time. And it kind of got lost, but we're going to go over that again, the Flint piece. Now that Biden is in office, you will probably see me a little less consistently over the next few weeks, partly because we're working on another story, which is taking up a lot of time, and partly because I need a break. If you'll allow me, I need a little bit of a break. I'm a little worn out. For 2 months straight, I was working about 16 hours a day on the Flint story that we broke. So I could use, about a week to recharge. So you'll probably see me, in and out for the next week or two, partly because I'm working on another story and partly just getting a break to recharge so I don't burn out, because I'm about to burn out. And Jen is unfortunately still saying, still sick. So we'll see what happens. There are morons on Twitter saying Jordan and Jen are lying on the Flint story. There's morons on Twitter that lie a lot. I don't particularly know what we're lying about, considering the story has receipts. I mean, if you read our story, we obtained an avalanche of phone calls from former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, his chief of staff, and his health director that were going on in 2014 at the same exact time that the deadly Legionella outbreak in Flint was just setting off alarm bells in Snyder's environmental and health department. So not quite sure. Did they think we were making up the phone calls and just made up a bunch of phone calls? We also found a briefing. From October 2014 titled Governor's Briefings that mentioned Legionella, the Legionella outbreak in Flint twice. And it was addressed to the governor. We also got a lot of other things that was not in that story because we had to basically, we didn't rush it out irresponsibly, but we were going to take our time and publish it at the end of January. But we had to publish it when we did because it was announced that they were about to announce the charges. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's the story right there. I was happy, overjoyed to finally get on Michael Moore's radar. He was nice enough to have me on his podcast, which we talked about this story and a lot more. By the end of it, I think he was ready to go to battle and felt that the charges against Governor Snyder, which were a misdemeanor charge, were not adequate and not enough. But as they say in the business, here's a bit of a tease. And if you didn't read the story, you got to read it. Here it is in the super chat right there. If you didn't read the story, you got to read the story. I think it's, I'm a little biased because it's our story. I think it's one of the better pieces of journalism, at least over the last few years. And frankly, if only you knew how corrupt the Michigan media is, and how corrupt the local media is, and how corrupt the national media is. I cannot tell you. This is now the third time, and if you're watching from Michigan, you know what I'm talking about. This is now the third time that Jen and I have broke a pretty major story. In 2018, we broke that Governor Rick Snyder's environmental department was cheating on the lead and copper water testing. They were running people's water right before taking lead and copper samples. Michigan media wouldn't touch it. Then last year, in April 2020, we broke with Vice News that Snyder knew about the Flint water problem. Snyder knew about the Legionella outbreak. Snyder's right-hand man was essentially going to Flint and offering sick residents payoffs, which is part of why he was just charged last week with misconduct in office, extortion, perjury, and misconduct in office. Oh, and obstruction of justice. That was Snyder's right-hand man, partly because of the reporting we did. Detroit Free Press wouldn't touch that. Detroit News wouldn't touch that. The Flint Journal wouldn't touch that. The Associated Press wouldn't touch that. CNN, MSNBC, the list goes on. And now, we break. We obtained phone calls from the governor, his chief of staff, and health director. We obtained a briefing that was sent to the governor that mentioned the Legionella outbreak. We obtained information that the governor's environmental director had a meeting in Flint in October 2014 where the Legionella outbreak was discussed. Why is this all important? Snyder told Congress, I didn't know anything about the Legionella outbreak until January 2016. The phone calls, the briefing, the meeting that we obtained through reporting, through investigative reporting, that was in October 2014, 16 months earlier. So honestly, I was having a conversation with somebody. I would love at this point, I can't wait to either write a book or do a documentary or both that exposes all of the media and naming names, publishing emails that I've had with media telling me, yeah, we can't invest in this. We can't invest in exposing the biggest cover-up of the 21st century. Yes, the biggest cover-up of the 21st century is the Flint water cover-up. Period. Point blank. You could argue Iraq, but they didn't really do a good job covering that up, did they? So we'll talk a little bit more about Flint, but we are working on a follow-up because we have a lot more that's possibly, I don't want to say more corrupt, but we have a lot more pertaining to Mr. Governor Snyder. And I think once our next story comes out, the Michigan Attorney General, who charged him with a misdemeanor, Melissa Mays, a Flint resident we've interviewed many times, including last week, called it a jaywalking and a parking ticket. Poison a whole community of 100,000 poor people. Misdemeanor. She called it a parking ticket. I think the Attorney General and her criminal team are going to have to answer, why is it that this is only a misdemeanor, considering all that has been exposed? And actually, I just found something today that I wish I knew and I wish I had when we published that story. But why is this important? And I'm about to get to Biden's inauguration. But why is this important? And I want to explain this to you. Because a lot of people hear Flint, and it's not that they don't care, but they just want to hear, let's talk about Biden or Trump or the Democratic Party corruption. They might not realize this is not just a local story. the cover-up that we have exposed, the cover-up that we are going to continue to expose. Jen has been working on it with me while being sick. Jen actually just did a video for members giving you an update on how she's still suffering with COVID. By the way, we are now, while the screen goes black for a second, we are now at 1,840 paying Status Coup members. So starting to smell that 2,000. Starting to smell that 2,000 member. So what did Donald Trump? Stay back and stand by. Stand back and stay by. Because wait till you see the next story. That's all I got to say. Honestly, mafia cover-ups aren't even this scandalous, to be honest with you. And to tell you the truth, somebody asked, well, Jordan, you're saying this is the biggest cover-up of the 21st century. What about Epstein? I don't want to minimize what Jeffrey Epstein did. Absolutely not. It was horrendous. Those women will never have their lives be the same. But, 100,000 people were poisoned. It will never be known how many people died. So I would say in terms of effect and cover-up, this is in a different category. And why it's important and why it's national is this kind of corruption is happening all of America. It might not be about water all over America, but it's happening all over America. So before I get to the inauguration today, a public service announcement. I've heard your complaints. About the lighting of the show. I've heard your complaints about me looking pale and like a snowman. I understand the complaints. We've tried our best with not enough resources. We've tried our best. I've tried my best, as most people that do professional broadcasts have a tech team with them. I don't have the luxury of having a tech team or even a tech person with me. So Ty, who used to work with us, still a friend of the show. He's now working for Stephen Colbert. Not on Colbert's late night show, but another project Colbert is involved with. Ty will be helping me redo my setup, including lighting, including possibly a new monitor behind me instead of a green screen, really sprucing the whole shebang up. Still talking to him about when that's going to be. It's going to involve us purchasing a whole lot of crap, probably $1,000 to $2,000, maybe more. So stay tuned. We will be trying to spruce it up to improve the production. Because as we grow, I don't want people focused on the lighting or things like that. I want them focused on our reporting. So stand by for that. And what you could do to help us afford all this is sign up as a Status Coup member for as low as $5 a month. I'm going to talk to Jen, see when she's feeling up to our members call. Possibly by the end of this week, we'll do our monthly members call. So please sign up, statuscoup.com/join for as low as $5 a month. $5 a month. Really appreciate every one of your support. Keep signing up, statuscoup.com/join. Cat, $5. Preemptive swear jar, $5. Appreciate it. Seth Peterson, $30. Jordan, love the podcast with Michael Moore. You could hear the hurt and anger in his voice. I truly hope he uses his influence to bring this injustice to light. You and Jen have shown that it is worth fighting and not giving up. I agree. And I really, really appreciate Michael having us on. To tell you the truth, it took about 4 or 5 years to get his attention. Better late than never. I really appreciate it. It was one of my career highlights because I really like Michael Moore. I respect his work, even though I was a little ticked off that he wasn't sharing our work. Who knows? I don't even know if he saw it, to tell you the truth. He's a busy guy, and he's got a lot of people reaching out to him for a lot of things. But the bottom line is I'm now on his radar. We're now on his radar. They said they're going to look at our documentary, Flushing Flint. As an update to that, I saw some people on Twitter ranting and raving. Jordan, you fundraised for Flushing Flint. You got money for Flushing Flint, the documentary, and then you never released it. Honestly, the sheer speed that lies go out on the internet, it's hard to keep up. First of all, we never fundraised specifically for Flushing Flint. We fundraised to keep going back to Flint. Number two, we released the documentary for our members, I think 2 years ago, for our paying members. We didn't just release it on our own because we're a really small startup and we have a shitty website, which we're going to redo this year, by the way. And frankly, we didn't want to just release it and not maximize eyeballs, maximize the reach. When you have something that you're proud of, when you have a documentary and a story reporting, investigative reporting, knocking on, hundreds and hundreds of doors, you don't want to just put it out there on your own and let's just hope people watch. When we did it in 2018, we were much, much smaller than we are now. So we shopped it around, and we even had a former Showtime executive interested in it to distribute it. And she had contacts at Netflix, Hulu, and a bunch of places. And we trusted this person, and she let us down. She pretty much, led us astray for 6 months and then said, oh, I can't get it picked up. Sorry. And that was in 2019. We were told she can't get it picked up. Then I reached out to Means TV, which is, what do they call themselves? The socialist Netflix. And they seemed interested. And then for some reason, they ghosted me. I don't particularly know why. So I followed up with them. They never got back to me. I don't know. I don't know if they were just busy or they might have Googled my name and seen some things they didn't like that were not true. Who knows? But it's not been for a lack of trying to get Flushing Flint out. And you could say, well, just release it, Jordan. Well, at some point we will, but we want to exhaust all of our avenues first. For those of you that don't know, some documentaries, it takes 4 to 5 to 10 years after filming it to actually get it to see the light, to get it out there. So it's, you might not agree, but we want to maximize it. We want it to be on a major platform so that people will know, A, there was a crime here. They cheated on the water testing. But B, the governor who was just charged with a misdemeanor, it was his environmental department doing the cheating. So we're working on it. I promise. JG, has Biden said anything about fixing Flint? What do you think? Come on. No, he hasn't. Nancy, $4.99, got the text. Awesome. All right. So I'm not playing all of Joe Biden's inauguration. I just can't put myself through that. And I don't want to put you through that. By the way, we got a dog, too. My wife and I got a dog. It's really breaking my heart because the dog wants nothing to do with me. She's obsessed with my wife. Wants nothing to do with me. And for the first 2 nights, she was, barking up a goddamn storm all night to the point I had to sleep on the couch 2 nights in a row so that she would stop. Fingers crossed she stopped the last 2 nights, but the first 2 nights, not so good. I don't want to start the conspiracy theories. I hope Rachel Maddow is not watching. She is from Russia. Our sweet Millie. As far as I could tell, they did not put any chip in her to spy on us. She's a beautiful dog. I'll post a picture. If you're watching, send me a picture that I could post today. But she's very scared of me. I don't know what happened in Russia. I told my wife, I think some Russian oligarch did something to her. I'm just being honest. Dave, I've been giving her treats nonstop. She wants nothing to do with me. She takes the treat and then runs away. If I come near her, she's on the couch now. She wants nothing to do with me. She runs away. It's really outrageous. I personally wanted to change the name to Flint. My wife said that was disrespectful. I asked a resident of Flint, do you think that's disrespectful? Because I think Flint is a story of redemption. But, happy wife, happy life. So we're sticking with Millie. She's a beautiful young pup. I think a mini pincher. So I'll get you some pictures. All right. Keep those super chats coming. Sign up as a Status Coup member. Let me show you this part of Biden's inauguration, because this is really all you need to see.
Storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country. It's taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history..."
So, I mean, for those of you that watched it, this was a wonderful speech. This was a wonderful speech, frankly, if you are a suburban, comfortable American. I'm not condemning comfortable suburban Americans, but this was a speech for the wine moms. This was a speech for those who are comfortable enough to think a lack of unity is the biggest problem in the United Corporations of America, because we do live in the United Corporations of America. This was a speech basically hitting the themes of emptiness that Biden ran on. Because Biden didn't run on doing anything per se in terms of policy. Biden didn't run on doing anything per se in terms of healthcare, doing anything in terms of, the military-industrial complex, doing anything in terms of the corruption and toxicity of money in our politics. He ran on bringing us back to unity. He ran on kind of a brushed-up version of what Obama ran on. Let's enter a post-partisan America. Heal the wounds of yesteryear. And this is all very wonderful language if you are a comfortable person economically, if you are a person with decent health care, if you are in a position where Donald Trump affected you mostly emotionally, not economically or socially, just triggers you emotionally because of the vile things he said, the vile things he proposed. But the truth is, the person standing up there today is one of the leading people responsible for most of the things he's saying we have to repair. I'm not trying to just, be petty and attack Biden on the day he's inaugurated. The jury, I think we know how this is going to play out because he's already shown us by who he's chosen in his cabinet, who he chose as vice president, how this is going to play out. But the devil's advocate could say, Jordan, criticize him, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He just canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, which is a good thing. He just got us back into the Paris Climate Accord. It's a good thing. The Paris Climate Accord was essentially a Band-Aid to the climate's gunshot wound. Most serious climate experts say the Paris Climate Accord is completely insufficient. But better that we're in it than not in it. I assume he would get us back in the Iran nuclear deal. I didn't see if he has yet. Maybe he did. So it seems like he's essentially, that's why I titled it Back to the Neoliberal Future. He's just, first step is to erase everything Trump did, or as much as he can. and restore the Obama order. But the problem with this hoity talk about unity is it's a facade. People who run campaigns on bringing people together, it sounds good, but it's always been a facade. George W. Bush ran on it in 2000. Obama ran on it, and adding in, a post-partisan utopia America, which kind of hard to create when at the time you're raking in money from Wall Street. Obama was. Nobody knew that at the time because the media didn't report it. Hillary Clinton ran on a lot of these themes. Stronger together, we need to unite. But the truth is, part of why the country is so tense, I like what Crystal Ball phrased it. The country is a tinderbox. The country is it's any moment exploding. Part of why it's so polarized between Republicans and liberals, between progressives and neoliberals, between, frankly, white supremacists and the rest of us, is because the economic order of this country has been a gilded age, a corrupt gilded age, really for the last 40, 50 years. 50 years ago was the last time we had even any sense of egalitarian economics, where a CEO might have made 15 times more as their worker, not 300 times more. A time when labor unions were a fierce force for good and made demands and could make demands because they had the numbers. A time when we had tighter regulations on how much corporations and individuals could flood in to their politicians. Brathwaite, $5. Schmoozer is already working on a power sharing agreement. I'm getting it. Agreement with Turtle Mitch, even though the Dinocrats control both legislators. Repubs never do that. Oh, I'll get to that. Don't worry. Thanks for the super chat. So Biden can talk till he's blue in the face and restoring the soul of America, uniting. But the truth is, the soul of America, folks, CNN won't tell you this. MSNBC won't tell you this. The Associated Press won't tell you this. This is the soul of America. Right here. Besides genocide of Native Americans, kidnapping, rape, murder of Native Americans, besides slavery, using black people as free labor in the origins of this country, and then after they were, quote, freed, criminalizing them, this is the soul of America. This is the ugly chart they will rarely show you on MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, Daily Beast, BuzzFeed, Reuters. We could go down the list. This is a huge reason why there's so much hate, why there's so much economic despair, why there is such a strong amount of people that were susceptible to Trump's lies, why so many people flooded the Capitol. Yeah, there's racism that's part of it. Yeah, there's paranoia. But there's also, at the root of all of this, is economic despair. And by the way, that's a major reason why Hitler rose in Germany. Germany economically was destroyed in World War I. Industry was essentially taken out. People were economically desperate, and in came Adolf Hitler. And that's how nationalism reaches such a boiling point. And people's economic anger, economic desperation, economic fear makes them susceptible to finding anyone they could blame, whether it's Jews, in Trump's case, Muslims and Mexicans and undocumented. But the truth is, Joe Biden is part of the corrupt system. That is why our money has been stolen. That red line is your money for the last 40 years. And that stops at 2015. I haven't seen an updated chart, how far that red line has going up these days. It's only exploded further during COVID. Joe Biden's part of that system. And yeah, hey, I know I'm going to hear it constantly. Well, Jordan, you voted for that. I did. I've already explained why. I mean, I voted for him, but I never stopped covering him critically. I'm not like some outlets that were doing fundraising emails for Biden while claiming to be rebel headquarters. I voted for him because, honestly, I saw in those rallies with Trump, those massless cult suicide rallies, I saw Trump, even before the election, starting this nonsense that the election was rigged and stolen. I saw this is going to get a lot worse if Trump gets reelected. I think this is going to get to a territory where we're going to have a civil war. And frankly, I hate to say it, I think 2 weeks ago at the Capitol showed that I was right. I'm not shaming anyone. I never told anyone how to vote. I see that a lot. Oh, Jordan, you tried to get us to vote for Biden. I literally told you, you vote however you want. But for me, I said I'd rather deal with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I'd rather deal with fighting Joe Biden and Neera Tanden than fighting Donald Trump, Proud Boys, QAnon, white militia groups. It doesn't mean the QAnon, the white militia groups, are going to go quietly into the night. No, they're here. We're going to have to deal with that. But it's a little different when you have a president stoking it every single day. So to me, it wasn't even a lesser of two evils situation. I am not a religious person, but as a Jew, I felt I'm seeing some really, I never bought into the Adolf Hitler comparisons and Trump's a fascist and this and that. I resisted saying that. I thought he was dangerous, but I think you should be careful when comparing every figure you detest to Hitler. Because Hitler did something very specific. The Nazis did something very specific. But what I was seeing up close at those rallies, you have to be there to see it. I had a pit in my stomach that this has evolved from 2016. 2016, it was hateful, but this has evolved to something much different, much more conspiratorial, much more suicide-y. You had tens of thousands of people going to these rallies not wearing masks during a deadly pandemic because they were following their cult leader who told them the pandemic isn't even real. So even though I voted for him, I knew this is basically going back to where we left off with Obama. And I think that he said a whole lot of lovely things. I mean, CNN slobbering over him all day. It's pathetic. I don't know if you saw this clip. This was amazing. Watch this CNN reporter or whoever he is. I mean, just watch this.
Tinkering going on with the inaugural address, but his aides have made really clear it's not like he's trying to ignore or paper over either what happened at the Capitol 2 weeks ago or what we've been through throughout 4 years of the Trump presidency. And the contrast on display tonight was so stark. I mean, those lights that are just shooting out from the Lincoln Memorial along the reflecting pool, it's like almost extensions of Joe Biden's arms embracing America. It was a moment where the new president came to town and sort of convened the country in this moment of remembrance, outstretching his arms. And contrast that with that video.
Listen, do I think it's a good thing that finally we have a president that is taking the pandemic seriously? Do I think it's a good thing that he memorialized the 400,000 dead? Yeah, I do. And credit to Biden for doing that. But let's remember something very clearly. Joe Biden wanted to wrap his hands over America, he'd be giving all Americans guaranteed health care during a deadly pandemic. That's how you wrap your hands around America, not through bullshit optics. If Joe Biden wanted to wrap his hands around America, you know what he'd do? He would say Very, very simply, we're in a pandemic. This is an emergency. And the United States government is paying, retroactively back to March, is paying people's rent. All across America, we are footing the bill for people's rent so that the landlords get paid, because there are small landlords that are not, terrible people, and they need their rent because they need to pay back their loans. But the U.S. government, we're going to pay people's rent. So there's no eviction moratorium, and there's no bill that's going to come due in a few months when the pandemic is done. But we're going to pay people's rent, so they don't have to have that stress. They don't have to have that pressure, and they're not facing a mass eviction during a deadly pandemic. That's how you wrap your hands around a country during a pandemic. You know how else you wrap your hands around a country during a deadly pandemic? You say, during the campaign, I felt strongly that the best way to go forward is to expand Obamacare. But, this is a pandemic, and temporarily we're going to make Medicare available for all Americans. The reason he will not do that is because he knows once you give it temporarily, you're going to have a hell of a hard time taking that away and going back to the for-profit, corrupt for-profit system. So, that CNN reporter, whomever he is making well over six figures, got VIP health care. So they could focus on these, visual aesthetics. And they could slobber all over Joe Biden's extremities, which is what's been going on MSNBC and CNN. And they could say, I'm hearing these hot takes now. I mean, this is another one. Reporters pushing, James Clyburn says ex-President Bush told him Clyburn was the savior because of his role in helping Biden win the Democratic nomination. Clyburn says Bush went on to call Biden the only one who could have defeated this incumbent president. And this is the gaslighting that's already been going on, that Biden won because there was some groundswell for Joe Biden in particular. Biden won because he's the only figure that could heal the nation. Well, Joe Biden is the figure that is, other than Bill Clinton, who signed it, responsible for mass incarceration and imprisoning generations of black people. That's the same person who stood up there today talking about finally solving racism in America. Joe Biden is the person that's instrumental in repealing bankruptcy protections for poor people. Joe Biden was instrumental in repealing Glass-Steagall, which led to the financial crash in 2008. Thank you for the super chat. Lana, Dell, $5. Clyburn. So we could get back into, I think it's pretty damn clear. Bernie would have wiped the floor with Trump twice in 2016 and 2020. All the polls show that. I mean, all the exit polls show that. And by the way, the exit polls in this past general election show. I mean, people came out against Trump, not for Biden. But they want to push this narrative because the neoliberal order essentially wants to paper over not just the last 4 or 5 years of Trump. They want to paper over the last 4 or 5 years explosion of the progressive movement. They want to paper over Bernie Sanders' movement. They want to paper over Democratic Socialists of America, AOC, the Squad, who I've criticized recently. I don't go as far to say fraud squad. I don't think we're all children here who, if politicians don't do what we want every time, they're the fraud squad. I mean, I love Jimmy. I just wouldn't go that far. But the squad is on. They better be on alert. They're not celebrities to us. We elected them for a reason. And if they're not going to do what they said they're going to do, which is fight when they have the leverage, then we're not going to vote for them again. So we will find other candidates to run against them if need be. Because I don't really care if AOC tweets cool things and sounds good. I care if she's ready to roll up her sleeves and fight. But at the end of the day, thank you for the super chat. Go Zilla, $5. Thank you and Jen for your on-the-ground reporting, and I still believe all of your coverage on Flint must have saved some lives. Again, thank you. I got to tell you the truth. Somebody who I really trust, I won't name names, but pretty high up there in terms of Flint, messaged me and said there is zero chance Snyder would have been charged with anything if not for our report last year in Vice. That there was zero chance they were going to charge him with anything if not for the fact that you exposed what his right-hand man was doing. Snyder's essentially henchman, Richard Baird, was going around offering payoffs to sick residents, was threatening residents, was misusing funds to pay off residents, and we exposed that Snyder knew about the deadly Legionella outbreak way earlier than he told Congress. And tomorrow, I don't know if tomorrow, the next time I'm live, I will have something to say about the Democrat House Oversight Committee because, you know, our reporting indicates the governor of Michigan, former governor of Michigan, perjured himself in front of Congress. I'm pretty sure perjury is still a federal crime, and I'm pretty sure the Democratic House, Democrats at the Senate, the House, the White House, they could drag Rick Snyder in right now. They don't have to wait to see how things play out in the criminal proceedings in Michigan. While Robert Mueller was investigating Donald Trump and his campaign federally, the New York Southern District, powerful New York Southern District, has been investigating for 2 years, I think, on the state level. So the House Oversight Committee, I'm going to get into it tomorrow, they got back to me with kind of a ridiculous statement, if you ask me. So we'll have things to say about that. But thank you. And for those of you that don't know, if you came late, I was delighted to be on Michael Moore's podcast, 5 years in the making, but I'll take it. Really, really amazing that he had me on. He's pissed after he read our report that the only charges were a misdemeanor. And Michael Moore is definitely an ally you want on your side in terms of Flint reporting. And by the way, you asked for it, you shall get it. I am uploading a picture of my beautiful dog right now. Just got her, Millie. Let me get this for you. Millie, Millie, do 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 do. Oh, honey, honey, do 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 do. You are my candy girl, and you want me wanting you. Here is Millie Sheridan, if you could see. We think she's a half mini pincher. I don't know what they said, but she's got the black and brown and white going on. That is not a chip spying on us from Russia. That is GPS. So if she gets lost, actually the first day I had her, she escaped out of our backyard, so that was fun. Probably shouldn't have said that, but whatever. So that is our beautiful girl. We'll bring her on some live streams once she gets more comfortable and stops running away from me. But that is Millie, our new love, growing our family here in the Sheridan household. So, to me, the question is, where does the progressive movement go from here? Where does the progressive movement go from here? Holy cow, $46. Eric G., $46. What are your thoughts on censorship moving forward and Ajit Pai's replacement? Keep up the great work, team. You know what? Let me play that clip on censorship that I wanted to play. This is from Brian Stelter and Reliable Sources, their little show. Here.
Images of January 6th is going to be that line of men in matching green tactical outfits with their hands on each other's shoulders, snaking their way through the disorganized mob. And that is effectively what we are facing online, and that you have a large number of people who are angry and aggrieved and who have been lied to by the right-wing news ecosystem as well as online influencers about the election, and who want to show that anger and they want to feel like they're part of something. And within that disorganized mob, you have a small number of people people who are highly organized and who really want to create violence. And so I think one of the things we have to do is we have to be careful to try to separate those out and to not allow that small group of organized people to speak on behalf of everybody. That is one of the problems I think we'll have around media coverage of this, is that the 3%ers, the Proud Boys, folks like that they will be given an outsized influence and their messages will be amplified over and over again because their messages are extremely scary. Those groups need to be treated like ISIS, effectively, right? There's a history here of both between law enforcement and the social media companies of being able to reduce the online presence and the influence of those groups. And then we have to work on the broader disinformation problem to try to turn down the anger that you see from that huge percentage of Republicans who believe that the election was stolen.
It's the Biden denialism is very real and widespread. So is riot denialism, with people claiming that it was anti. We have to be clear-eyed about what is a domestic terror threat, but also very careful not to exaggerate it, not to overstate it, not to create undue fear.
That's absolutely right. We've got to be very careful here. Just because someone may believe that the president did not win the election, or the President-elect Biden did not win, or that someone believes in QAnon, doesn't mean that they're going to go pick up arms and go riot. And this is the challenge that we're facing. I don't think that as a society, certainly as a prior administrator, the current administration, hasn't done enough to really study and understand and consider this challenge. And that's in part what we're trying to accomplish at the Aspen Institute with the Commission on Information Disorder that I'm going to be chairing, is look at the different factors from the federal government side, the international community side, the private sector, civil society and academia. What are the various
So I picked the wrong clip, but in that interview, one of those two gentlemen suggested essentially that we need to purge. We need to purge or go after OANN. We have to go after Newsmax, Fox News, and all of this. And I have an interesting take because, and it might, some people might not like it, but I see a lot of what the talk has been online. And I think some people either don't understand censorship or don't truly understand what speech is not protected. So to me, and I've given my opinion several times, it happens to be nuanced. I do think networks that spew dangerous misinformation and with that dangerous misinformation stoke their viewers to go out and fight on the grounds of this misinformation, I do think they should be held accountable because you have a major platform. If you are a Fox News host, even if you're a Newsmax host, even if you're an OANN host, even if you have a YouTube channel with a big following, you have a responsibility. You can't just, recklessly push conspiracy theories that when you're pushing them, come with you pushing those conspiracy theories are essentially knowingly feeding those conspiracy theories to people under the guise of, we got to fight against this. Newsmax, for months, because they were seeing a huge surge in their ratings, were pushing this election fraud conspiracy. They were telling their viewers to fight. You are telling angry people, you are feeding angry people more paranoia, more conspiracy. And it doesn't mean you don't have to say, go to the Capitol, bring your guns, go to the Capitol, shoot some people up. That's not the only form of incitement. So I don't agree with some on the left who say those people should be protected because if you go after those people, they're going to come after us next. And Status Coup was just come after. 2 days ago, our cameraman, John, was live broadcasting from a peaceful gun rights rally. We had over 6,000 people watching. Honestly, I thought it was really interesting. The people carrying guns with their military garb were actually saying we're not Trump supporters, and they were explaining why they were out there. Even Black Lives Matter people came. I thought it was actually a productive event, but YouTube took it down because YouTube, in its algorithm, which is nonsense, it's also humans watching certain channels and making decisions to censor them, said, oh, there are firearms in the stream, so we have to take it down. Well, a week before that, we had 30,000 people watching our live stream from the Capitol, where John bravely went in and got incredible live footage. There were guns galore. They didn't take that down. So, yes, censorship is a slippery slope. But this idea that, no, not all speech should be protected, and we need to just a carpet exemption, even if people are pushing baseless conspiracy theories that they are, because a lot of these channels were literally fighting to stop the steal. Well, if you're fighting to stop the steal, which is a BS conspiracy theory, I know a lot of people have been pushing it, but as a journalist, I'm here to tell you there are no facts that support hundreds of thousands of votes being flipped from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. And there never were any facts to support that. And channels that claim, oh, we're just covering election integrity are full of shit. That's not covering election integrity. That's pushing an evidence-free conspiracy theory. That's what that is. And those channels and networks that claim, no, we're just, looking into things here. We're just, we care about election integrity. Caring about election integrity overall, that's a good thing. There should be a major discussion and coverage on our election machines, which are susceptible to being hacked, which can have votes flipped like that. But that's different than pushing that an election was stolen, feeding that to audiences for months, feeding Stop the Steal for months. After, by the way, Jen and I were outside the Philadelphia Convention Center 2 days after the election, where I interviewed Trump supporters who were out there, stop the steal, stop the steal. At 2 a.m., my wife called me. There were two men that drove up from Virginia with a van full of guns ready to shoot up the Philadelphia Convention Center because of Trump and the misinformation, but the media misinformation. 5 people died at the Capitol because Newsmax, OANN, Fox News, Breitbart, conservative media, and frankly, some on the YouTube were pushing this nonsense. Now, I'm not saying they're directly responsible. Obviously, people have to take an action to shoot a gun. But the bottom line is, all of this plays a part. So I do think if you, whether it's a YouTube show or a Fox News anchor or whatever, you have a responsibility. Even if you're a commentator, even if you're not claiming to be a reporter, if you want to push conspiracy theories, that's fine. There are plenty of conspiracy channels, and a lot of them are great. It's fine that, they're just, this is our hunch, and here's why we think. If you want to just be, I tell my audience when I'm not reporting something, when I'm just saying, here's my hunch, I make clear I'm not reporting this. I don't have evidence for it. For example, the Flint story that we just broke for The Intercept. I knew about those phone calls way earlier, but I didn't have evidence of them. I just knew they existed. You see, as a journalist, I would have loved to publish in April of 2020 that Governor Snyder, as chief of staff and health director, were on the phone like a bunch of drunken teenagers for 2 days, back to back phone calls for 2 days, while a deadly bacterial outbreak in Flint's water was going on. But I didn't have the documentation. I didn't have the evidence. That's the difference. So to answer your question, do I think some of these outlets should be held accountable? Yes, I do. I do. And I don't think that, I do think there are some forms of speech, if you are a public figure, you can't just get away with it. But, and this is the important but, and my position has frankly been lied about all over the internet the last few days by certain people, using a tweet that I sent out on the day of the Capitol attack. I've made very clear, I do not believe I do not believe Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, owned by Amazon, should be the judge, jury, and executioners for who is inciting violence and who is not, for which live streams could go up and which ones can't, for which channels should be elevated and which should be suppressed. All of that should not be in the hands of unelected cretins. All of that should not be in the hands of Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, Google CEO Jeff Bezos, who owns Twitch. Because when you give ultimate power for information to unelected people who are financially in bed with the government, then the censorship is not actually about the merits of the content. It's about pleasing advertisers. It's about protecting government secrets. It's about maintaining the status quo. So, do I think that there needs to be an independent body in conjunction with the courts so that if hosts are inciting violence, and what I consider inciting violence is telling people to fight in this polarized moment, telling people go fight to stop the steal. That's absolutely inciting violence. These are not stupid people on Fox News. These are not stupid people on Newsmax, OANN, and other YouTube channels. They know exactly what they're doing. They know they're not feeding this to people who are going to try and go kindly talk to their government and have tea. So, forms of accountability, what do I mean by that? Somebody, whether it be the courts, an actually independent body that is not Republican or Democrat, these entities need to be publicly regulated because they are public utilities. Mark Zuckerberg openly said Facebook is like a government. Then it should be regulated. Because Mark Zuckerberg shouldn't be determining whether Donald Trump could be on Facebook. Jack Dorsey shouldn't be determining whether Donald Trump should be on Twitter. They should not be determining what right-wing channels go, what left-wing channels go, because it is beyond a slippery slope. They will abuse that power and they will abuse that power. First, they will come for legitimate white supremacists, extremists, and then they will come for edgy podcasts. Then they will come for Jimmy Dore. Then they will come for Status Coup. Because the censorship what they want censored most is not white supremacy. What they want censored most is anti-capitalist, anti-war, and anti-corruption. Those three things. So, to answer your question, which was long-winded, I don't agree that we should just let everything sit, nothing be censored. I think people that are putting out there, it's censorship to eliminate certain extremist voices, don't understand what censorship is. And frankly, I mean, under those people's definitions, really, really dangerous people in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, like Mussolini, Stalin, Hitler, you name it, if they came to rise in today's age, they would say, no, you can't censor them. You can't get rid of their channels. Can't get rid of their social platforms. There is a line where people need to be held accountable. But I don't think Silicon Valley should be the ones to do it. That's my honest opinion. And I think Biden needs to be pressured. About the only thing I liked about Elizabeth Warren's campaign, she said, break Google up, break Amazon up, break Facebook up. She was right. AREM, Jordan, the problem I have with your analysis and conclusions is that you have never addressed the lack of election transparency's contribution in ensuing violence. Aram, with all due respect, the reason we just had our Capitol attacked by a bunch of lunatics is not because of a lack of transparency. It's because Donald Trump has developed a cult. And if Donald Trump told those people, your mother stole money from me, your mother did something, they turn on their mother if Donald Trump told them to. That's how cults work. They weren't out there because of a lack of election integrity. And I think, frankly, there are some channels out there that are gaslighting you. There are channels out there that are gaslighting you. They're pretending, oh, no, all we were talking about is election integrity. They're not talking about, maybe on other things, they're talking about election integrity. They were pushing a fact-free conspiracy theory without evidence, on hunches, on theories, and they dressed it up as journalism. Fox News did it, OAN did it, Newsmax did it, and other channels did it. That's not evaluating or investigating election integrity. That's pretending to be journalistic outlets and feeding to rightly upset people that are rightly upset that their preferred candidate, Donald Trump, lost, or people that hate the Democratic Party, and feeding them bullshit and then dressing it up as election integrity. Well, here's election integrity. I was out covering the election. There was a pandemic. There was an unprecedented amount of mail-in ballots, which overwhelmingly went to Joe Biden. There was a huge turnout, both for Trump and for Biden. And Trump ran a really bad campaign, which I talked about last week. If he would have given $2,000 checks, if he wouldn't have had a first debate where he sounded like a drunk maniac, remember that first debate? If he would have given the $2,000 checks, given more relief, we would be reelected. He'd be reinaugurated today. That's the truth. And I think people, I'm not calling people naive, but I think you really need to understand, because as a news consumer, not as a host, if your major if your first concern and your major problem is me calling out channels and networks that are lying to you, that are feeding you nonsense, that are pretending to be journalists, rather than the media and outlets that are lying to you, feeding you nonsense, you might want to check into what are your priorities. You can watch whatever you want. If you want to watch Fox, go watch Fox. If you want to watch OANN, watch whatever. I'm not telling you what to watch and what not to watch, but I'm telling you, if you have a microphone, if you have an audience, you have a responsibility to at least try to get it right. You have a responsibility to make clear what is fact and what is just your opinion without evidence. So to me, it's not about censoring. And I think there needs to be very specific measurements for what would be grounds to remove a channel. And those should not be dictated. Those measurements should not be dictated by Silicon Valley. I've already said. I said it on Jimmy's show yesterday, or 2 days ago. We cannot let Silicon Valley and big tech, which are major special interests, buying off Democrats and Republicans, be judge, jury, and executioner. But if you truly think these hosts at Fox, OANN, Newsmax, Breitbart, frankly, some progressive channels, should just be allowed to spew nonsense and bullshit and lies about stolen elections, push stop the steal, and just go on their merry way while as they radicalize thousands of people, millions of people, I just disagree with you. Sorry. So, as I wrap this up, and remember, we're at 1,800 841 Status Coup members. Just got a new member. Welcome, new Status Coup member Jason. New Status Coup member Jason. Really, really appreciate you signing up. And I want to tell you now, we've talked about Biden's inauguration. I want to tell you now about our plans for Status Coup, what we would like to do for Status Coup. And I say what we would like to do with the full caveat that I'm going to take maybe a week to 2 weeks off at some point soon. Oh, we got some GoFundMe donations too. Thank you, Samuel, $5. Thank you, Anonymous, $40. We're at $137,240. As a caveat, we don't have that money in the bank. That's how much we've raised cumulatively. But thanks for the donations. You could always donate there or super chat. But I want to tell you what we would like to do. Number one, I'm not particularly interested in covering everyday hot takes on the Biden administration. We will investigate. We will call out corruption. I did a segment the other day on him picking Gina Raimondo, the Rhode Island governor, who might as well be a Goldman gal. She's in bed with Goldman Sachs. You could check out that video. I'm not over the moon interested in everyday hot takes on the Biden administration. We'll cover what's going on, but I truly believe, and I've said this before, I truly believe we need to get out of the thinking that electoral politics will save us. That if we just get enough progressives in the House, then we'll be able to make significant change. That if we just get a progressive president, then we'll be able to make significant change. I think it will help to do those things, but I think it's evident over the last few years there needs to be something more than electoral politics. There needs to be something more than just electoral politics. And what I think that is a resurgence of labor and a resurgence of actual on-the-ground economic boycotts, economic protest. Yeah, the neoliberals who pretended, they were all about the working man. They're going back to sleep. They're going back to brunch. But I want to elevate economic organizing. I want to elevate workers organizing. I want to elevate workers fighting back. I just had somebody reach out to me who was fired from Amazon out west. I was trying to set up an interview with that person. I want to elevate not just black people, not just brown people, not just native people, all people that are organizing to make demands with their wallets. Because to me, it doesn't really matter how many progressives you have in the squad. It doesn't really matter how many progressives win on the local and state level. Because the truth is, ultimately, we live in the United Corporations of America, and we're not going to get significant change until we hurt the ruling class where it hurts, and that's in their wallets. If we hurt the ruling class in their wallets, Jeff Bezos, the Waltons, the real estate developers, the pharmaceutical executives, big agriculture, Silicon Valley, big banks, fossil fuckers, you name it. You start hurting them economically in their wallets, you'll see the politicians acting real quick. You will see politicians act quick on real change. Not a $1,400 check. Biden, they're already selling out. Oh, you elect us in Georgia, Warnock and Ossoff. You vote for us, you're getting a $2,000 check. Oh, you're elected now? Well, what we meant was a $1,400 check to go with the $600 check we gave you. Oh, Biden just, announced today, I'm extending the eviction moratorium to March 31st. People are celebrating on Twitter like that's a good thing. Who cares if you kick the eviction moratorium down the road 2 more months? Okay, so when the moratorium is lifted, what are you going to do about, at this point, since millions probably have not paid their rent for six to 10 months. What are you going to do about their bill once that moratorium is lifted? Are you going to say to your real estate donors, the government's paying for it? Are you going to say to your real estate donors and big bank donors that own mortgages, that own buildings, we're forgiving this rent? Doesn't matter how far you push the eviction moratorium. If when it's up, there's no protection for these people that owe thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in rent. So we want to focus. Obviously, there's still a pandemic, so we're not going to be in the field as much as I would like to be. There's now a mutation of coronavirus that's more contagious. So who knows? Hopefully, God forbid, who knows what this mutation is going to unfold into? We're so numb to it now, but 2,700 people died yesterday. The numbers are still out of control. Over 400,000 have died. But we want to bring on people and interview people and expose stories of workers being screwed and workers organizing and fighting back. Because to me, where we need to go, we now know we can have a mass mobilization of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the streets at one time in America. We saw it after George Floyd. And that was over civil rights, over Black Lives Matter, which was obviously important. And that needs to continue. So we know we can get the bodies in the street. Across generation, there were old and young. Across race, there were white and black and brown and Asian in those streets. Now we need, with those numbers, to get even a quarter of those people, hell, even 10 to 15% of those people, protesting Amazon, protesting big banks, not spending their money at big brand shops. And you could say, well, Jordan, you're going to hurt the workers at these places. Well, unfortunately, there's going to have to be some pain. But we need to go after the rulers, the people that have been stealing and hoarding the wealth for the last 40 years. So if you get people who are protesting in the streets, if you get with those bodies on the street, them withholding their wallets from the rulers of America, you watch how quickly things change. So on a baseline level, Status Coup is getting to a point. I don't think we're there yet, but we are getting to a point where we would like to hire another reporter. That would free me up to not be live every day. Not that, I will be live still. I still will be a major player here, obviously. But it would be really, really helpful if, while I'm doing investigative reporting, which is just a massive, you have no idea how much goes into one story like we broke last week. All the sources you need to speak with on the phone daily. All the documents you need to go through. It's exhausting. I was pulling 16, 17 hours a day working on that Flint story and going live and doing interviews for my Norman. So to have another reporter would allow us to have somebody that could do that part while I'm investigating. Also, I want to create as many faces as I can. Status Coup is not going to grow if it's just me and Jen. It's only going to grow if we create more voices, more styles, more, maybe we hire a reporter whose area of passion is in X, Y, and Z thing that we don't really cover that much. We need to grow. It doesn't mean I'm going away. No. But we need to grow. But we were never in a position to hire another reporter because it costs money and we're not going to offer someone pennies. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer. The footage that John shot, we were able to make a good chunk of change through licensing fees with ABC, CNN, NBC, Showtime, New York Times, Washington Post, BBC, ITV, other foreign channels. The footage was everywhere. We were able to make a good return on that. We gave John a very, very nice bonus, so he was taken care of. So once Jen is feeling better, we're going to go through our books and see do we have enough money to bring on another reporter. We also want to hire another person that could kind of be a Renaissance person, help with marketing, help with social media, help with logistics. So Jen doesn't have to deal with booking hotels and cars and all the logistical things. We did post that, and we have a lot of people who applied. Full disclosure, I haven't gone through any of those yet because I've been so busy, but we got a lot of resumes and people applying for that. So we want to grow, and we want to grow this year. We firmly believe, as we said when we launched, there's a huge, huge demand for the kind of reporting we do. There's a huge, huge demand for in-the-field reporting. Even if we can't go in the field during a pandemic as much, the kind of stories we cover, the kind of voices that we give microphones to, the kind of stories we lift. Frankly, we're the only ones that have even stayed on the Flint water crisis. Everybody else stopped covering it in 2016. Frankly, I say this modestly, we're the only reason people even know about this cover-up. So we want to expand, not just to focus on Flint, but of a lot of other things. So, but we need you. We need you for that. So obviously times are tough for people. We're at 1,841 members. So if you don't have $5 a month, that's fine. We totally get it. If you do, though, know that we're like, in baseball terms, we're kind of like rounding third base. We're rounding third base in terms of hiring other people. We need a little more funding to do it. So I'm hoping if you have the means, we've shown you enough that you will support our reporting. And if you don't, if you're new, here's what I'm talking about. Millions and millions of people have been laid off. Millions more have had their hours cut. We're kind of living in a quiet, silent depression. What do you call 45 million people filing for unemployment?
$1,200 in 3 months makes no sense. Makes absolutely no sense.
Everybody should be paying attention to what's going on because this is happening in every county, not just Louisville, Kentucky. And that's why the world is like, wait a minute, enough's enough.
And one thing I do know is if you're not sitting at the table, you are on the menu. And it seems like we continue to be on the menu.
I don't want to have to lose everything that we worked really hard for. We've been struggling for 5 years, and then we finally got everything together, and it just instantly went away.
Literally driving across the country during the pandemic, talking to people, finding out what's going on.
But there are people such as yourself and other people that are telling the true story of what is happening.
All of these black people have been assassinated by police in this city, and none of them have been brought to justice.
People don't really care about those things in places where, we're not New York, we're not Chicago, we're not Minneapolis, we're Louisville, Kentucky.
If somebody calls you screaming for help at 911, they never treated her. They never came to her apartment, nothing.
Vote, and do what's right in your heart, because change comes from within. So as long as your heart is pure and you're doing what's right, that's what matters.
$5 a month. $5 a month. Join us. There's a lot more that we want to do, and we've done a lot with not a lot of resources. All right, folks. Oh, did I miss a super chat? Hold on. Matt W. 2NZ. Cover the Industrial Workers of the World Union. Email me that. I'm going to forget it. Email me info@statuscoup.com. That's info@statuscoup.com. Kevin Howard, $10. Jordan, what are your thoughts about modern monetary theory that suggests our government can spend as much money to help people with inflation being the only limitation? Kevin, you must be new. We've covered that extensively here. I've had Steve Grumbine on extensively. I am pro MMT. It's always been bullshit. Debts, deficits, pay-go, We print money for war. We print money for tax cuts for the rich, subsidies for Goldman Sachs, Pfizer, Raytheon. We got all the money in the world. We could print money. We just choose not to because we don't want to actually print money for working people. We want to print money for corporations and war. So I'm pro MMT. And I actually listen to experts like Stephanie Kelton and Steve Grumbine. So, did I miss any others? All right. I'm going to go eat dinner. Steve is recovering from COVID. He's home now, thankfully. Still really, really fatigued, but he's not in the hospital, so that's a good thing. Friend of the show, Steve Grumbine. And I also want to make clear, and if you're a member, by the way, if you're a Status Coup member, Jen uploaded a member's video updating you on her condition. I think that a lot of people don't realize. I mean, I was kind of lucky that my COVID was bad, but the worst symptoms were 2 to 3 weeks. I had a lingering cough for about a month, but the worst symptoms, the fever, the violent cough, was about 2 to 3 weeks. There's a growing number of people who get COVID and have symptoms for 2 to 3 months. Former person I worked with at the Young Turks, John Graziano, him and his girlfriend had it. He's still having symptoms 6 months later. So Jen, every morning, is sending me, not every morning, but a lot of mornings recently, she still has a low-grade fever. She covered that rally where we're almost positive she got it on November 20th. It's now January 20th. It's 2 months ago. Fever. She's still having nausea, debilitating fatigue, cognitive issues. So, it's no joke. It's no joke. You could really, she is one of the long haulers. And you could, if you get it, you can have it longer than 10 to 14 days. She has really, really had a rough time with it. And not just physically. Imagine being quarantined from your kids and basically away from the world for 2 months. It's terrible. The social isolation. So definitely keep sending her your well wishes. info@statuscoup.com. Somebody asked, did I get the shot? No. I mean, could you move me up on the list? No, I didn't get the shot. I don't think people in my age bracket, I'm 34. I don't think we're getting it, if we're lucky, till May or June. Personally, I think actual journalists, should be moved up that list because we're out there in the field, or I am. I'm not talking about like CNN people around their little studio table. I'm talking if you're a reporter that goes out in the field, I think that is an essential service, and I think you should get a shot. Because how are people going to be informed if we can't have journalists being safe out there? But no, I'm not special getting a shot early, personally. So, all right, folks, thanks for watching. What's today? Tuesday? I think I'll be back tomorrow. I will be kind of sporadic the next 2 or 3 weeks because I am working on a follow-up story and I need some time off to recharge. But we will keep going, and please sign up as a Status Coup member. I'm going to speak with Jen, but I'm thinking we're going to have our members call this week. So if you're not a member yet, sign up. statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. Thank you to Sam helping us out in the super chat. You guys might not know Sam Oser down in Houston. She's been with me for a couple years. She worked with me at a nonprofit I had, Truth Against the Machine. So she's helped us while Jen's been sick in super chats. She probably sent our Flint story to God knows how many media outlets that did not respond because they're corrupt. But she's been helping. So thank you to Sam and Colin, as always. I will see you tomorrow. Peace.